My trembling fingers traced the outline of the deep blue velvet jewelry box. Its edges were slightly worn, but it was my most precious treasure. Today was Leo's 10th birthday, and I had specifically taken out this jade pendant that I had kept safe for so many years. The pendant was shaped like a teardrop, a deep, translucent green all through, with a faint, wispy line running through its center, like a tiny bolt of lightning sealed within the stone. Would Leo like it? I murmured to myself, holding the pendant up to the window. The sunlight filtered through the jade, casting a patch of green light on the floor. I remembered what my mother-in-law had said when she gave it to me. "Eleanor, this is our family heirloom. When Michael has a child, you pass it down." I sighed softly and carefully placed the pendant back in its box, then wrapped it in tissue paper. My fingers weren't as nimble as they used to be. The edges of the wrapping paper refused to line up properly. I had to unwrap and rewrap it 3 times before I was even remotely satisfied. The knuckles of my 72-year-old hands were thick, covered in the marks of time, much like my life full of wrinkles, yet still resilient. "Mom, are you ready?" My son's voice called from outside the door. "Coming, coming," I replied hurriedly, stuffing the gift into my handbag and taking one last look in the mirror. The old woman in the reflection was wearing that deep blue dress, the one Michael had given me for my birthday last year, the one I could never bring myself to wear. My silver hair was pulled back into a simple bun, and the wrinkles on my face were like a map carved by the years, recording every detail of raising my son alone. Michael was standing at the door, dressed in a sharp suit, the very picture of a successful man. A wave of warmth washed over my heart. The little boy from my memories had grown into a man who could stand on his own 2 feet. "Mom, you look great today," he said with a smile, but his eyes flickered, as if there was something he wanted to say but held back. Leo must be getting impatient. "Let's get going," I said, patting his hand, choosing not to press him. The car drove towards the Crestwood Grand Hotel, the most luxurious hotel in the city center, and my heart sank a little with every block. Last year's birthday was at home, where I could at least help in the kitchen, preparing a few of Leo's favorite dishes. This year, Jessica insisted on holding it at a 5-star hotel, saying they couldn't afford to lose face. The hotel lobby was a spectacle of gold and marble, the crystal chandeliers so bright they made my eyes water. A hostess led us to the ballroom on the 3rd floor. At the entrance stood a huge poster with a photo of Leo in a little tuxedo, smiling brilliantly. "Grandma!" Leo shouted, running over and throwing himself into my arms. "Happy birthday, my sweet boy," I said, hugging him tightly, breathing in the faint scent of shampoo in his hair. This was my happiest moment. "Mom, you're here," Jessica said, walking over, her high heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. She was wearing a form-fitting red dress today, her makeup was flawless, and a string of dazzling diamonds adorned her neck. "Jessica, happy birthday to Leo," I said with a smile, handing over the carefully prepared gift. "This is for him." Jessica took the gift, her brow furrowing almost imperceptibly. "Thanks, Mom. Why don't you have a seat? The guests will be arriving soon." I was seated at a round table in the corner, with a few middle-aged people I didn't recognize. Judging by their attire, they were likely Jessica's friends. They nodded politely at me before resuming their conversation about stocks, overseas vacations, and their children's private schools. The party began. The lights dimmed, and a spotlight hit the stage in the center. Jessica gave a passionate speech detailing Leo's life, while a professionally produced video played on a large screen behind her. I saw Michael and Jessica standing on stage, and the picture of their happy family of 3 stung my eyes. My son was now someone else's husband, someone else's father, and I was just an old woman sitting in a corner. Next was the gift-giving portion of the evening. Jessica announced in a loud voice, and one by one, guests walked onto the stage to present their expensive gifts. The latest video game console, designer sneakers, a solid gold pendant, each gift drew a round of gasps and applause. "And now, let's have Leo's grandmother come up to give her gift." Jessica's voice snapped me back to reality. I stood up, my legs trembling slightly, and slowly made my way to the stage. All eyes in the room were on me, and I felt a wave of dizziness. Once on stage, I shakily took the small wrapped box out of my handbag. "Leo, Grandma wishes you a happy birthday," I said, my voice catching as I handed him the gift. This is our family heirloom. May it keep you safe and healthy." Leo was about to take it, but Jessica intercepted, snatching the box away. "Mom, what is this?" she asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She tore off the wrapping paper and opened the jewelry box. The jade pendant glowed with a soft, warm light under the spotlights. Jessica's expression froze instantly, and the corner of her mouth twitched. "Mom," she said, her voice low, but the microphone carried it throughout the entire ballroom. "Did you go to a flea market and buy this fake junk again? How could Leo possibly wear something like this?" My face flushed crimson, and a buzzing filled my ears. "It's not fake, it's—" "That's enough, Mom." Jessica cut me off. "I know you don't have much money, but you can't embarrass us with this kind of street stall trash." With that, she casually tossed the box. It sailed through the air in a graceful arc and landed squarely in a trash can at the side of the stage. The entire room fell silent. I saw Leo's eyes go wide, and the color drained from Michael's face. My vision blurred, but I fought back the tears, refusing to let them fall. Under the gaze of everyone present, I slowly walked to the trash can. I bent down and picked up the jewelry box. The jade pendant was undamaged, still resting peacefully on its velvet lining. I gently closed the lid, placed it back in my handbag, and then turned and walked towards the exit. "Mom?" Michael called out, but he didn't follow me. As I stepped out of the hotel, a wave of summer heat hit me. I stood on the side of the road with no idea where to go. A taxi slowly pulled up, and the driver leaned out. "Need a ride, ma'am?" I nodded and got in. "Where to?" the driver asked. "The retirement community, thank you," I said softly, finally letting the tears I had held back for so long stream silently down my face. Outside the window, the city's skyscrapers flew by. I clutched my handbag tightly. The jade pendant felt as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. "This isn't the end," I told myself silently. "This is just the beginning." 30 minutes later, as I sat in my small room staring blankly at a childhood photo of Michael on the wall, my phone buzzed. It was a text from him. "Mom, I'm sorry. Jessica was just in a bad mood today. Please don't take it to heart. You can keep the gift." I didn't reply, just placed the phone back on the table. Just then, a news alert popped up on the screen. Breaking. Food poisoning incident at the Crestwood Grand Hotel, dozens of guests hospitalized. My hand trembled as I clicked on the news. The photos showed the chaotic ballroom I had just left. The red lights of the ambulances were especially glaring in the night. The elevator at the retirement community was broken again. I held onto the railing, climbing step by step up to the 5th floor. My knees ached dully, but compared to the pain in my heart, this physical discomfort was nothing. As I was fitting the key into the lock, the door next to mine opened. Arthur poked his head out, his white hair messy as if he had just woken up. "Eleanor, you're back so early? Did your grandson's birthday party end already?" He was holding a half-eaten apple in his hand. I managed a weak smile. "Yes, I was a little tired, so I came back first." Arthur squinted, his gaze falling on my swollen red eyes. "That's the thing about getting old. You can't hide anything. Come in for a cup of tea," he said, and without waiting for an answer, pulled my door open for me. "My daughter just sent me some new tea. It's called something fancy, some kind of Earl Grey." I wanted to refuse, but the thought of my empty room felt colder than usual, so I nodded. Arthur's apartment was a bit larger than mine, and the walls were covered with photographs. I sat on the sofa, my eyes drawn to a family portrait, a younger Arthur, his wife, and a little boy. "That's my son, David," Arthur said, handing me a cup of tea. The steam rose in gentle wisps. "He moved to Canada 10 years ago. I'm lucky if I get 2 calls a year." I held the teacup, its warmth seeping through the porcelain into my palms. "At least he's doing well." "Doing well?" Arthur snorted. "He married a foreign woman who won't even let my grandson learn a word of Chinese. Last year, I was in the hospital, and all he did was send a check." I silently took a sip of the tea. It had a rich aroma with a faint hint of honey. It was indeed a very fine tea. "So what happened today?" Arthur asked suddenly. "Did that daughter-in-law of yours give you a hard time again?" My hand trembled, and tea sloshed onto my pants. Arthur quickly handed me a napkin. I took it and dabbed clumsily at the spot. She threw my gift in the trash. My voice was barely a whisper. In front of everyone. Arthur's brow furrowed into a deep line. What gift? I took the velvet box from my handbag and opened it for him. The jade pendant glowed softly in the light, the lightning-like streak within it seeming even more pronounced. "This is no flea market junk," Arthur exclaimed. "I used to work in a jade factory when I was young. The quality of this piece? It's at least top grade." I shook my head with a bitter smile. "It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that Leo never received his grandmother's gift." Arthur suddenly stood up and began rummaging through a bookshelf, finally pulling out a photo album. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a photo of a young woman wearing a jade pendant remarkably similar to the one in my hand. "This was my mother," Arthur said. "She had one just like it, said it was passed down through the generations. It was confiscated during the Cultural Revolution. She cried for a month. My heart skipped a beat. What? What a coincidence. Eleanor, where did you get this pendant?" "My mother-in-law passed it down to me. She said it was a family treasure, but I always thought it was just a replica." My voice grew quieter as memories flooded back. It was 1978, not long after I had married Michael's father, Daniel. My mother-in-law called me into her room and took this pendant from a small wooden box. "Eleanor," she had said, placing the pendant in my palm, "this has been passed down in the Miller family. This is the 4th generation it's come to. When you and Daniel have a child, you'll pass it down." I was young then and knew nothing about the value of jade. I just thought the pendant was a beautiful shade of green. Later, after my husband passed away early, I raised Michael on my own. During the hardest times, I had considered selling it, but every time I took it out, I couldn't bear to part with it. It was the only heirloom the Miller family had left. "Eleanor," Arthur's voice pulled me back to the present. "Are you all right?" I shook my head and closed the jewelry box. "I'm fine, just thinking about some old times." Arthur sighed. "Children, they're a debt we pay. My son was even worse than your daughter-in-law back in the day. When he got married, he told me straight, 'Dad, don't come. Your clothes are too old-fashioned. You'll embarrass me.' And what happened after?" I couldn't help but ask. "After?" Arthur gave a bitter laugh. "His business failed. His fancy wife left him. Only then did he remember his old man. Now he calls every month, says he wants to come back and see me. Did you forgive him? What choice do I have? He's my own flesh and blood. You can break the bone, but the sinew holds." Arthur's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I looked down at the jade pendant in my hand and suddenly understood why my mother-in-law, on her deathbed, had repeatedly insisted that I personally hand it to my grandson. She had foreseen it. One day, the Miller family would need this heirloom to hold the bloodline together. My phone rang suddenly. It was Michael. I took a deep breath and answered. "Mom, are you home?" Michael's voice was heavy with exhaustion. "I'm home. Don't worry. About what happened today, Jessica didn't mean it. She's just blunt. She speaks without thinking." I closed my eyes, forcing the tears back. "I know. How are things on your end?" "I saw on the news there was trouble at the hotel. Food poisoning. Dozens of people were sent to the hospital. It's a good thing you left early." Michael's voice suddenly dropped, as if he were talking to someone else. "Mom, I have to go to the hospital. Jessica's dad got sick too. You should get some rest. I'll come see you tomorrow." The call disconnected. I sat frozen on the sofa, the jade pendant in my hand, suddenly feeling immensely heavy. "Your son?" Arthur asked. I nodded. He said Jessica is just blunt. "Blunt?" Arthur scoffed. "That's called having no class." I stood up. "Thank you, Arthur. I think I need to be alone for a bit." Back in my own apartment, I pulled open a drawer and took out an old, faded photo album. In one picture, Michael was just a baby. I was holding him, my face beaming with the joy of new motherhood. My husband stood beside me, his hand on my shoulder, a shy smile on his face. It was the last photo taken of him before he died. 3 months later, he was gone forever in a factory accident. I stroked the photograph, memories rushing back like a tide. All those years, raising Michael alone, working at the textile mill during the day, and taking in sewing work at night. How many times had I sewn until dawn, my fingers pricked and bleeding, just to buy my son a new copy of the children's encyclopedia? Michael made me proud. The day he got into college, I cried all night. After graduation, he joined a multinational corporation, climbed the ladder, and eventually met Jessica, the heiress to the Zhou Group. I still remember the first time I met Jessica. She was wearing a designer dress and high heels, looking up and down our 500-square-foot-old apartment. Her brow wrinkled so tightly you could pinch a fly in it. "Mom, we're getting married," Michael announced excitedly. But I saw the disdain in Jessica's eyes, and my heart had already turned cold. The wedding was lavish. The Zhou family booked an entire 5-star hotel. I sat at the head table in a rented dress, feeling completely out of place. Jessica's father, Richard Zhou, a sharp-eyed middle-aged man, raised his glass to me and said, "We're all one family now." At the time, I was naive enough to believe he meant it. The phone rang again, an unfamiliar number. "Hello, is this Miss Eleanor Miller?" a woman asked. "Yes, it is. This is the City First Hospital's Wellness Center. There were some abnormalities in your checkup report from last month. We need you to come in for a follow-up. Can you come in tomorrow?" My heart sank. What kind of abnormalities? The doctor will explain in detail. Would 9 o'clock tomorrow morning work for you? Yes, fine. I hung up, my hand instinctively pressing against my abdomen. I had been feeling a dull ache there recently, but I had brushed it off as a normal part of getting old. Outside, the night had deepened. I lay in bed, the jade pendant tucked under my pillow. 3 in the morning, I thought. I have to go to the hospital. And then what? Should I tell Michael? No, he has enough on his plate right now. I can handle this myself. Closing my eyes, I could see Leo's innocent, smiling face again. No matter what, I had to see my grandson grow up. That thought became my final comfort before I fell asleep. 3 days passed, and Michael didn't come to see me as promised. I called twice, and both times Jessica answered, saying Michael was away on a business trip. I knew she was lying, but I didn't want to expose her. The results of the follow-up at the hospital were worse than I had imagined. The doctor looked at the CT scan, his brow furrowed. "Ma'am, there's a mass on your liver. We need to do further tests." "Is it cancer?" My voice trembled. "We can't be sure yet. We need to do a biopsy." The doctor's eyes were full of sympathy. "Do you have any family with you?" I shook my head. "I can handle it." Leaving the hospital, the sunlight was so bright it hurt my eyes. I stood at the bus stop, watching the traffic go by, and suddenly didn't know where I was supposed to go. When I got back to my apartment building, an unexpected figure at my door made me stop in my tracks. A middle-aged man in a tailored suit was standing there, checking his watch. "Can I help you?" I asked warily. The man turned around, and I recognized him. It was Richard Zhou, Jessica's father. He looked older than the last time I'd seen him, his temples completely white, but his eyes were still as sharp as a hawk's. "There you are," he said, forcing a business-like smile. "I've been waiting for half an hour. Is there something you need?" I didn't hide the coldness in my voice. "May I come in and talk?" His gaze flickered to the keys in my hand. I hesitated for a moment but opened the door. Richard Zhou looked around my humble apartment, his eyes sweeping over the peeling furniture and faded curtains, finally landing on the open photo album on the coffee table. "It's quiet. Living alone," he said, the polite words failing to mask the condescending tone. "Just say what you came to say," I told him, pouring him a glass of water. "Not tea." Richard took an exquisite box from his briefcase. When he opened it, I was stunned to see my jade pendant inside. "About what happened at Leo's birthday party. Jessica is young and foolish. She offended you." Richard pushed the box towards me. I came specifically to return this to its rightful owner. I looked at him suspiciously. "Did Jessica send you?" "Not entirely." Richard smiled. "I'm mainly here for this pendant. Do you know its origin?" I shook my head. "My mother-in-law passed it down to me. She said it was a family treasure." "Did your mother-in-law ever say where it came from?" "She said it was passed down from my husband's great-grandfather. I don't know the specifics. I felt increasingly strange. Is this important? Richard took a business card from his pocket and handed it to me. To be honest, I'm in the business of antique collection. This pendant is quite unusual. I took the card. The gold-embossed letters read, Richard Joe, Chairman, Joe Fine Arts Investment Group. At the hotel 3 days ago, I saw this pendant from a distance, and it looked familiar, Richard continued. Later, after Jessica set it aside, I had a chance to examine it closely. You recognized it? Yes. Richard's eyes lit up. If I'm not mistaken, this should be the work of the late Qing and early Republican period jade master, Wang Shusen. He was famous for carving lightning green jade, and every one of his pieces has a unique streak running through it. My hand instinctively went to my neck, though the pendant wasn't there. My mother-in-law had indeed said the jade had a name, Lightning Heart, because of that streak inside that looked like lightning. You're very knowledgeable, I said cautiously. It's my profession, Richard smiled. I had 2 experts appraise it, and they unanimously confirmed it's authentic. There are fewer than 20 of Wang Shusen's works known to exist, and each one is priceless. Priceless? My heart began to race. This pendant, which I had treated as a simple piece of jewelry, was so valuable. You want to buy it? I asked directly. Richard clearly hadn't expected me to be so blunt. He paused. Yes, if you're willing to part with it, the price is negotiable. It's not for sale. I pushed the box back towards him. This is a family heirloom, to be left for my grandson. The smile on Richard's face froze. You may not understand the market. A piece of jade like this would fetch at least 8 figures at auction. 8 figures. My mind struggled to process it. $10 million? For this little pendant? You've worked hard your whole life. You deserve to enjoy your golden years. Richard's voice softened. $10 million is enough for you to buy a nice house, hire a caregiver, and the rest can be put into an education fund for Leo. I shook my head. Mr. Joe, thank you for your kind offer. But this pendant is not a commodity. It's the continuation of the Miller family bloodline. Richard's expression darkened. Think it over. An opportunity like this doesn't come around often. There's nothing to think about. I stood up, making it clear I wanted him to leave. Richard stood up as well, adjusting his suit. Fine. But, could you tell me, do you have any other similar pieces in your family collection? The question put me on alert. Why do you ask? Just curious. Richard smiled. Heirlooms like this usually don't come in singles. There are no more, I said flatly. Richard was clearly skeptical, but still bid a polite farewell. Just before leaving, he turned back suddenly. By the way, tomorrow is the weekend. Jessica and Michael are bringing Leo to see you. Regarding what happened today, please don't mention it to them. I nodded, thinking this was likely the real purpose of his visit, to keep his daughter from knowing her father was trying to get his hands on her mother-in-law's family heirloom. After closing the door, I immediately went to the back of my closet and found an old leather suitcase. It had belonged to my husband. I never had the heart to throw it away. I opened it. Inside were some yellowed photographs, a few diaries, and a small wooden box. With trembling hands, I opened the wooden box. Inside was a pair of jade earrings, clearly made from the same material as the pendant. My mother-in-law had given me the pendant, while the earrings had been left to my sister-in-law. After she passed away, the earrings came back to me. I flipped through my husband's diary and found an entry. Father said our family's jade was brought out of the imperial palace by great-grandfather. During the chaos of the Boxer Rebellion, great-grandfather saved a eunuch and was gifted 3 treasures, 1 pendant and 2 earrings. The pendant is now with mother, the earrings with aunt. Father warned that these items are priceless and must not be shown to others unless absolutely necessary. My hands were shaking badly. Richard Joe was right. This was truly a treasure. But what frightened me more was how he had recognized its value at a glance, unless he already knew something. The ringing of the phone interrupted my thoughts. It was Michael. Mom, we're bringing Leo to see you tomorrow. His voice sounded exhausted. That's wonderful. I'll make you guys some pot roast, I said, trying to sound cheerful. Jessica is coming too, he said, hesitating. She wants to apologize to you. I could almost picture Jessica glaring at him from the side. It's fine. It's all in the past. After hanging up, I took out the jade pendant and examined it carefully under the light. The lightning streak seemed to glow, as if telling the story of the family's rise and fall it had witnessed over 100 years. Tomorrow, Jessica was coming to apologize. How much of it was sincere, and how much was at her father's instruction? I gave a bitter smile and hid the pendant and earrings again. No matter what, this was the Miller family heirloom, and it had to be passed down to my grandson, Leo. Even if my time might be running out. The thought sent a chill through me. The doctor's words echoed in my ears. Needs further tests? Could be a malignant tumor. I shook my head, pushing away the pessimistic thoughts. I was going to see my grandson tomorrow. I needed to prepare his favorite cookies. As for Jessica's apology, I had no expectations, but for my son's sake, I was willing to pretend that nothing had happened. Outside, the sun was setting, painting my small apartment in shades of gold. This tiny apartment, this simple furniture, and that old leather suitcase holding the family heirlooms, this was my life savings. But in the eyes of the Joe family, it probably wasn't even worth the cost of one of their dinners. I stroked the initials of my husband's name on the suitcase and whispered, "Daniel, our son, he's doing so well now. You don't have to worry." Tears slid silently down my cheeks. How I wished my husband could have lived to see this day, to see how successful his son had become, to see how adorable his grandson was. Maybe then, Michael wouldn't always have to bow his head in front of the Joe family. Maybe our family wouldn't be the way it was now. But life has no maybes. I wiped my tears and started preparing the ingredients for tomorrow. No matter what, my grandson was coming, and I wanted him to remember the taste of his grandma's home. Richard Joe began to appear in my life with increasing frequency. At first, it was a weekly visit when he was in the neighborhood. Then it became every 2 or 3 days, each time with expensive gifts, imported fruits, health supplements, and once even a massage chair that filled my tiny living room to the brim. "You live alone. You have to take care of your health," he would say with false sincerity, his eyes constantly scanning my apartment as if searching for something. I knew what he was looking for: more heirlooms. Ever since the incident with the jade pendant, Richard was convinced that this unassuming old woman was hiding more valuable antiques. Today he came again, bringing a box of what he claimed was a premium Dragonwell tea. I made him tea, observing him covertly. Richard wore a custom-tailored suit, his leather shoes shone, and the Patek Philippe on his wrist glittered in the sunlight. He held the teacup in a contrived manner, as if deliberately showing off the large jade ring on his thumb. "So, have you considered my offer?" he asked after a sip, getting straight to the point. "What offer?" "Oh, the pendant." He put down his cup. "If you weren't satisfied with my last offer, we can renegotiate. I've told you, it's not for sale," I said calmly. "It's for Leo." The smile on Richard's face faltered. "You may not be aware, but the antiques market is very volatile. What's worth 10 million today might only be worth 5 million tomorrow. I don't care about the market." I looked him straight in the eye. "Mr. Joe, why are you so desperate to have this pendant? Is there a special reason?" Richard was clearly taken aback by my directness. He paused. "It's purely a collector's hobby. I'm an avid fan of Wang Shuzhen's work." "Is that so?" I smiled. "Then you must know what Wang Shuzhen's most famous work is." "The jadeite cabbage, of course," Richard blurted out. I almost laughed out loud. The jadeite cabbage is the crown jewel of the National Palace Museum in Taipei and has absolutely nothing to do with Wang Shuzhen. This self-proclaimed antiques expert didn't even know the basics. Richard realized his mistake, and his face turned ugly. "What I meant was, Mr. Joe," I interrupted, "what did you really come here to say today?" Richard put down his teacup, his expression suddenly serious. "All right, I'll be direct. The Joe Group is preparing a major auction, and we need a few show-stopping pieces. Your pendant fits the bill perfectly. So this is business." "Business and pleasure," he smiled. "If you're willing to sell, not only will the price be generous, but I can also arrange for Michael to get a position in the group's core management." His words were like a knife to my heart. He was using my son's future as a bargaining chip. "Does Michael know you came to me with this?" I fought to keep my voice from trembling. "He doesn't know." Richard waved his hand dismissively. Young people have too much pride. He wouldn't accept this kind of arrangement. But you're his mother. You should want what's best for him, right? I stood up. Mr. Zhou, please leave. Richard also stood, the smile gone from his face. Eleanor, don't be ungrateful. Where do you think your son's position in the Zhou family comes from? If Jessica hadn't taken a liking to him, he'd still be a nobody working for a salary. My son earns a living through his own abilities. He doesn't steal or cheat. I stared directly into his eyes. Please leave, or I'm calling the police. Richard sneered. Fine. We'll see about that. He turned towards the door, then suddenly spun back around. By the way, how are your recent medical results? Is your liver doing okay? The blood froze in my veins. How did he know about my medical tests? Seeing my expression, Richard smiled triumphantly. I have friends at the hospital. At your age, you have to take care of your health. Living alone. What if something were to happen? He didn't finish the sentence, but the threat was unmistakable. After the door closed, I collapsed into a chair, my hands shaking so badly I couldn't hold my teacup. Richard was not only after my heirlooms, he was investigating my health. The discovery sent a chill down my spine. Trembling, I called Arthur. 10 minutes later, he was knocking on my door. What's wrong? You look terrible, Arthur said with concern as he entered. I told him everything about Richard, including the part about him investigating my health. After listening, Arthur's brow furrowed. That old fox, he said angrily. Eleanor, you have to be careful. People like him will do anything to get what they want. What should I do? I asked helplessly. In my 70-plus years, I had never felt so alone and powerless. Arthur thought for a moment. First, hide your valuables. Second, does your son know about any of this? I shook my head. Michael's been busy with work. I don't want to bother him. Busy? Arthur snorted. More like being led around by the nose by the Zhou family. Eleanor, you have to talk to your son. He'll be caught in the middle. Better that than you turning up dead from an accident one day, Arthur said heatedly. I've seen plenty of men like Richard Zhou. On the surface, they're successful entrepreneurs. Behind the scenes, they're capable of anything. Arthur's words jolted me. Indeed, Richard's words and actions today carried a clear threat. If something really happened to me, who would my heirlooms fall to? Michael didn't even know their true value. I need to sort through my things, I said, standing up and heading to the bedroom. Arthur followed, helping me drag the old leather suitcase out from under the bed. Opening the case, besides the jade earrings I had found earlier, there were old photos, letters, and my husband's work notebooks. What's this? Arthur picked up a yellowed notebook. My husband's diary. I took the book and flipped through it casually. He liked to write things down. Wait. My eyes fell on an entry. Father is gravely ill today. He made me memorize the location of the 3 family jade pieces. In the east wall of the old house, 3 feet down, there is an iron box. Inside are our ancestors' manuscripts and a land deed from the Guangxu era. Their value is immeasurable. They must be protected for generations. The old house? Arthur leaned in to look. Where is your old family home? A small village in Hebei province. The house was sold long ago. I shook my head. Even if it wasn't, it would be gone by now. But this proves your family does have other heirlooms, Arthur said excitedly. Eleanor, your husband's family might not have been so simple. I continued flipping through the diary and found several more related entries. It turned out my husband's great-grandfather had been a scholar official in the late Qing dynasty and had served in the capital. The family had indeed collected many ancient books and paintings. Later, the family fell on hard times, and most of it was sold off, leaving only the most precious few pieces they carried with them. Richard Zhou might know something about this, Arthur analyzed. That's why he's so interested in you. This speculation sent a shiver down my spine. If Richard had long known about the Miller family's valuable artifacts, then his daughter's approach to Michael, I didn't dare think further. Just as we were engrossed in the materials, the doorbell rang. Arthur and I exchanged a nervous glance. I'll get it, Arthur said. Standing outside was Michael, holding 2 bags of fruit. He was clearly surprised to see Arthur. "Mom, you have a guest," he said, walking in, his eyes lingering for a moment on the open suitcase. "Arthur is helping me sort through some old things," I said, quickly closing the case. "What brings you here?" "I was just passing by, thought I'd check on you." Michael put down the fruit and hesitated. Was Jessica's dad here earlier?" My heart skipped a beat. "How did you know?" His car was parked downstairs. Michael's expression was complicated. "What did he say to you?" I hesitated, debating whether to tell my son the truth. Looking at his tired eyes, my heart softened. Nothing much, just came to see how I was doing. Michael was clearly unconvinced, but didn't press the matter. He sat down and poured himself a glass of water. "Mom, the Zhou family, they're in some trouble recently." "What kind of trouble?" "Cash flow problems," he sighed. "The Zhou group expanded too quickly. Now the banks won't approve their loans, and several major projects have stalled." My heart sank. No wonder Richard was so desperate for my heirlooms. "So, Jessica's dad has been looking for money everywhere," Michael continued. "I heard he's even preparing to auction off his own collection." Arthur coughed beside me, giving me a pointed look. I understood his meaning. This was exactly why Richard was pursuing me so relentlessly. "Michael," I asked cautiously, and I'm just saying if, Mom could help, would you accept it?" Michael looked up sharply. "Mom, where would you get money?" "I have some old things," I said vaguely. "They might be worth something." "No," Michael refused flatly. "That's your retirement savings. I'll figure something out for the Zhou family's problems. You don't need to worry." Looking at his stubborn face, I felt both relieved and heartbroken. Although my son had been influenced by the Zhou family for so many years, deep down, he was still the same good boy who didn't want his mother to worry. "By the way," Michael said suddenly, "Leo has a parent-child event at school next month. He wants you to come too." "Me?" I asked in surprise. "Does Jessica agree?" Michael's expression turned awkward. "She's been very busy lately. She probably won't have time to go." I understood. Jessica didn't want to go, but also didn't want to disappoint her son, so she had grudgingly agreed to let his unrefined grandmother attend. "I'll definitely be there," I said with a smile. Michael stayed for a little while longer before leaving, saying he had to go back to the office to work overtime. As he was leaving, he looked at me with a hesitant expression. "Mom, Jessica's dad, if he comes looking for you again, don't agree to anything he asks." I nodded, my heart filled with mixed emotions. My son clearly knew something, but he chose not to say it outright. How long could this delicate balance be maintained? After Michael left, Arthur helped me organize the materials, setting aside the diary with the important entry. "Eleanor, you need to keep these things safe," he said seriously. "It would be best to put them in a bank's safe deposit box. Go tomorrow." I agreed, but my mind was on something else. The Zhou family's financial crisis, would it affect Michael and Leo? As a mother and a grandmother, what was I supposed to do? Late at night, I opened my husband's diary again, searching for more clues about the iron box under the east wall of the old house. If there were truly valuable artifacts hidden there, maybe they could help my son through this crisis. But another voice in my head spoke up. "These are the Miller family heirlooms. They should be passed down to future generations, not used to fill the Zhou family's financial black hole." I was caught in a deep conflict. Outside, a bright moon hung high in the sky, its cold light shining down on this sleepless old woman. The hospital corridor seemed longer than usual. I sat on a bench, clutching the biopsy report, the doctor's words echoing in my ears. "Ma'am, it's confirmed. Liver cancer. Late stage. Without treatment, you have an estimated 6 to 9 months. 6 to 9 months. What could I do in such a short time? See my grandson grow up? See my son break free from the Zhou family's control? Uncover the secrets buried in the old Miller house?" "Mom?" I looked up sharply. Michael was standing in front of me, his face etched with worry. "Why was he here? What are you doing at the hospital? Are you feeling unwell?" He knelt down and took my hand. I quickly stuffed the report into my bag. "Nothing, just a routine checkup." "A checkup?" Michael frowned. "Then why are you in the oncology department?" Damn it. I had forgotten this was the oncology waiting area. I forced a smile. Oh, Arthur thought a relative of his was in this ward. He asked me to check, but I must have gotten the floor wrong. Michael looked at me with suspicion but didn't press further. He helped me up. I was just here for some business. I'll drive you home. In the car, Michael told me he was actually there to visit Richard Joe. The great and powerful father-in-law had been hospitalized for a stomach ulcer. Jessica has been at the hospital with him for days. The house is a mess, he sighed. Leo's being neglected, not even doing his homework. Why don't you let me take care of Leo for a few days? I asked tentatively. Michael's eyes lit up. Really? Would that be too much trouble for you? How could taking care of my grandson be trouble? I said with a smile, though my heart ached. If I only had 9 months to live, I wanted to spend as much of it as possible with Leo. And so, the next day, Leo was sent to my retirement community apartment. The 10-year-old boy was a bundle of energy, turning my small home upside down, but I cherished every moment of it. Cooking for him, helping him with his homework, listening to his stories about school, these ordinary moments were now priceless to me. Grandma, why do you keep rubbing your tummy? Leo asked suddenly. I dropped the hand that had unconsciously strayed to my liver. Oh, Grandma's just got a bit of a stomachache. It's an old problem. My dad gets stomachaches too, Leo said with the air of a tiny adult. Mom says it's because he always listens to your home remedies instead of going to the doctor like a normal person. My heart felt like it had been pricked by a needle. So this was how Jessica slandered me in front of my grandson. Leo, the herbal soups Grandma teaches you to make, that's wisdom passed down from our ancestors, I said as calmly as I could. But you're right. When you're sick, you should see a doctor. Grandma goes for checkups all the time. Leo nodded, then suddenly lowered his voice. Grandma, I know Mom is mean to you sometimes. Don't be sad. When I grow up, I'll protect you. The child's innocent words brought tears to my eyes. I hugged him, breathing in the scent of sunshine in his hair. Okay, Grandma will be waiting. At that moment, I made a resolution. In the limited time I had left, I would pass on the most important things to my grandson, not just the jade pendant, but the values of the Miller family. In the afternoon, I took Leo to the park. He played excitedly on the swings while I sat on a bench watching him. Suddenly, I noticed a familiar figure in the distance. Jessica. She was standing in the shade of a tree, talking angrily into her phone. I was about to call out to her when I overheard her words drift over. The old woman is trying to interfere again, taking my son without even telling me. What heirloom? It's just a bunch of junk. My dad was right, that family is definitely hiding something better. My heart sank. Wasn't Jessica supposed to be at the hospital with her father? Why was she here? Was she following us? Just then, Leo saw his mother and ran over happily. Mom! Jessica's expression shifted from anger to surprise, then she forced a smile. Sweetheart, what are you doing here? Dad said I could stay with Grandma for a few days, Leo answered innocently. Grandma made me super delicious pot roast. Jessica's face darkened. She walked over to me, her voice icy. Mom, don't you think you should have asked me before taking Leo? Michael said he already told you, I replied, confused. He told me, but I didn't agree, Jessica snapped. Leo has tutoring sessions to attend. He doesn't have time to be wasting here. Leo tugged at his mother's sleeve. Mom, I don't want to go to tutoring. I want to stay with Grandma. Be quiet, Jessica said, grabbing Leo's hand sharply. Say goodbye to your grandmother. We're going home. Leo started to cry, struggling to get away. It broke my heart to see him like this. I took a step forward. Jessica, the boy doesn't want to go. Don't force him. The tutoring can be rescheduled. You stay out of it. Jessica suddenly exploded. You think I don't know what you're trying to do? Teaching him about herbal soups and traditional values? You're just trying to turn him against me, aren't you? I stared at her in shock. I would never think of such a thing. I'm warning you, Jessica hissed, her voice low but every word like a knife. Stay away from my son. If I find you secretly contacting him again, you'll regret it. With that, she forcibly dragged Leo away. He looked back at me, his eyes filled with tears, crying out, Grandma. The image shattered my heart. Back home, I collapsed into a chair, shaking. It wasn't because I was afraid of Jessica's threats, but because I suddenly realized that if I were gone, who would teach Leo to be honest, kind, and respectful? Certainly not Jessica. And Michael? Under the thumb of the Zhou family, he had already lost himself. I had to do something. That evening, Michael called, his voice weary. "Mom, did Jessica come to see you today?" "She came and took Leo," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She's overreacting," Michael sighed. Her father's condition has gotten worse. The doctors suspect it might be stomach cancer. Jessica is not emotionally stable." My heart lurched. Richard Zhou had stomach cancer? No wonder he had been so desperate for my heirlooms. He probably felt his own time was running out. "Michael," I hesitated, "there's something I need to talk to you about. Can we meet? Just the two of us?" There was a moment of silence on the other end. "Mom, is there something wrong with your test results?" My son's perceptiveness made my nose sting. I had raised him, after all. How could he not notice something was wrong? "It's nothing major. I just have something to tell you in person," I said evasively. "Okay, I'll come see you tomorrow at noon," Michael agreed, though his voice was tinged with anxiety. After hanging up, I took out the hospital report and read it again. Late-stage liver cancer. The words burned my eyes. The doctor had recommended immediate hospitalization, but I had refused. I didn't want to spend my final days in a hospital bed. More importantly, I had too much to do. Protect the heirlooms from the Zhou family, ensure Leo inherited the Miller family's spirit, and uncover the secret of the old house, if it really existed. The next day at noon, Michael arrived as promised. He looked much more haggard, with dark circles under his eyes, clearly having not rested well. "Mom, what did you want to tell me?" he asked, getting straight to the point. I took a deep breath, deciding not to mention my illness just yet. "Michael, do you know what your great-grandfather did for a living?" Michael paused. "Wasn't he a minor government clerk or something?" I shook my head and took out my husband's diary. "Look at this." Michael carefully read the entry about the iron box under the east wall of the old house, his brow furrowing deeper and deeper. "Is this real?" "I'm not sure. But if your great-grandfather was indeed a late Qing official, the family could very well have some valuable artifacts," I said cautiously. "The problem is, Richard Zhou seems to have known about this all along." Michael's face changed. "Are you saying he approached you and had Jessica marry me, all because he was after our family's heirlooms?" Michael shot up, pacing back and forth in the tiny living room. "That's impossible. It's too absurd." "Michael, I'm not trying to drive a wedge between you and your wife," I said softly. "But think about it. Why was Richard so obsessed with my seemingly ordinary jade pendant? Why did he investigate my medical reports?" "He investigated you?" Michael looked at me in shock. I nodded and repeated Richard's threatening words to him. After I finished, Michael's face turned ashen. "Mom, I don't know what to say," he stammered. "If this is true, then my past 10 years. He didn't finish, but I knew what he meant. If the Zhou family had approached him with an ulterior motive from the very beginning, then his 10-year marriage, his career, even the birth of his son, could all be part of an elaborate scam. "Michael, I'm telling you this not to make you suffer," I said, taking his hand. "I'm just worried. Worried that one day, when I'm gone, Leo will lose his connection to the Miller family." "Mom, don't say such things." Michael suddenly became agitated. "What's really wrong with you? That medical report. Let me see it." I hadn't expected the conversation to turn this way and was at a loss for words. Michael, without waiting for permission, rummaged through my bag and found the report. The expression on his face as he read it broke my heart from confusion to shock, then to despair. "Liver cancer. Late stage," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Mom, why didn't you tell me? Why aren't you getting treatment?" "The doctors said it would have limited effect." I managed a weak smile. "I don't want to spend my last days in a hospital." Michael suddenly dropped to his knees, burying his head in my lap, and wept like a child. "Mom, I'm so sorry. All these years, I've failed you." I stroked his hair, tears streaming silently down my face. Silly boy. I was never angry with you. In that moment, all the hurt and bitterness vanished. My son was, after all, the same kind, dutiful boy. He had just been temporarily blinded by the Joe family's money and power, lost his way for a while. Michael, I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about you and Leo, I said softly. If the Joe family was really just using you, I'll find out the truth, Michael said, looking up, his eyes now firm. Mom, please don't give up on treatment. I know some top oncologists. I'll take you to see them tomorrow. I nodded, unable to refuse his kindness, but I knew some things couldn't be solved by medicine. My time was short. I had to seize every minute. About the old house, I said hesitantly. Do you think it's worth looking for? Michael thought for a moment. If great-grandfather really left something there, it might solve a lot of mysteries. But Mom, your health. I'm fine, I said, forcing myself to sound strong. Our old village is still there, I checked. If you have time, I'll go, Michael said decisively. You get some rest. Leave this to me. After seeing Michael off, I stood at the window, watching his figure disappear into the night. This conversation between mother and son seemed to have opened a long-sealed door. What awaited us behind that door, the truth, or an even bigger lie no one knew? The only thing I was sure of was that no matter what the Joe family had planned, no matter how much time I had left, I would do everything in my power to protect my son and my grandson. It was the instinct of a mother and a grandmother. Late at night, I took out the jade pendant again, examining it under the moonlight. The lightning streak seemed to glow, as if telling a family secret that spanned a century. Tomorrow, Michael would take me to see an oncologist, but more importantly, he would start investigating the Joe family's true motives. Whatever the outcome, this war over kinship, money, and heritage had quietly begun. And I, a 72-year-old woman, might just be the most important soldier in this war. Richard Joe's proposal sounded perfectly reasonable. You're living all by yourself. We're really worried, he said, sitting on my sofa, impeccably dressed and wearing a look of concern, especially now that your health isn't good. Why don't you move in with us? Jessica can learn to take care of you. I looked at his hypocritical smile, my mind as clear as a mirror. This wasn't an invitation. It was a form of house arrest. Ever since Michael had started investigating the Joe family's motives, Richard's concern for me had suddenly escalated. Thank you for the offer, but I'm used to living alone, I declined. Richard's smile faltered for a second. Michael is very worried about you too. You know, he's been so distracted by your situation these past few days that his work has suffered. The threat in his words was clear. If I didn't agree, Michael's job could be at risk. I'll think about it, I said, stalling for time. There's no need to think about it. Richard suddenly became forceful. The car is downstairs. We're moving you today. Just bring your essentials. The Joe family has everything else. This wasn't a discussion. It was an order. I realized that refusal was no longer an option. An hour later, I was sitting in Richard's luxury car with a small suitcase. Inside were only a few changes of clothes, toiletries, and my husband's diary. I had sewn the jade pendant and earrings into the lining of my undergarments. It was the only hiding place I could think of. The Joe family's villa was located in an upscale suburban community. It was a 3-story European-style mansion with a pool and a garden. I was given a small, north-facing room on the second floor. Though exquisitely furnished, the windows had security bars, making it feel like a beautiful prison cell. You get some rest. I'll call you for dinner, Richard said before leaving, pulling the door shut behind him. I immediately checked the room. The closet was filled with new clothes, all in my size. The nightstand had my blood pressure medication and brain-boosting supplements, the exact kinds I usually took. Clearly, their investigation of me had been thorough. Even more disturbing, I spotted the reflection of a micro camera in a corner of the room. They weren't even going to grant me the most basic privacy. At dinner, I saw Jessica for the first time in a while. She had lost weight and had dark circles under her eyes. It seemed Richard's illness was truly taking a toll on her. Mom, she greeted me coldly, then didn't look at me for the rest of the meal. Michael wasn't home. He was supposedly on a business trip. Leo was at boarding school and would only be back on the weekend. The dinner table consisted of just me, Jessica, and Richard. The atmosphere was suffocatingly silent. "I've arranged for a doctor to come give you a full checkup tomorrow," Richard said while cutting his steak. "Liver cancer is no small matter. It requires systematic treatment." I looked up at him. "How did you know I have liver cancer?" "I only told Michael." Richard's expression didn't change. "I have friends at the hospital." "Don't overthink it. We're all doing this for your own good." "For my own good," I sneered internally. They just wanted to confirm how much time I had left so they could proceed with their plans. Back in my room, I locked the door, though I knew they must have a key. I took the jade pendant from its hiding place and examined it under the light. How many secrets were hidden within that lightning streak? Why was Richard so obsessed with it? The next morning, a doctor did indeed arrive, carrying a portable ultrasound machine to examine me. Richard stood by the entire time, feigning concern while actually monitoring the situation. "The results were worse than before. The tumor has spread," the doctor said gravely. "You need to be hospitalized immediately." "There's no need," I refused calmly. "I know my situation. I'd rather spend my final days in peace than be tormented in a hospital." The doctor tried to persuade me further, but Richard surprisingly intervened. "Let's respect her wishes. We can arrange for home care." After the doctor left, Richard sat by my bed, his expression more sincere than ever. "I know you don't trust me, but please believe me, I genuinely admire the Miller family heirlooms. If you're willing to part with them, I guarantee you'll receive the best medical treatment and Michael's career will reach new heights." "You want to trade my life for your collection," I said, looking him straight in the eye. Richard shook his head. "You would be trading your wise decision for your son's future. Think about it. After you're gone, won't those things end up with Michael anyway? And his position in the Zhou family? Are you threatening a dying woman?" I scoffed. "No. I'm giving a mother one last chance to do something for her son." He stood up. "Think it over." After the door closed, I was trembling all over, not just from anger, but from fear. Richard had dropped all pretense. I had to find a way to contact Michael, or at least ensure the heirlooms didn't fall into the Zhou family's hands. In the afternoon, while Richard was out and Jessica wasn't home, I slipped out of my room, hoping to find a phone to call Arthur. But the landlines in the villa required a code to dial out, and I had no idea what it was. My cell phone had been taken away under the guise of preventing radiation from affecting your health. As I stood lost in the living room, a voice came from behind me. "Grandma." I turned to see Leo standing at the top of the stairs, his school bag still on his back, his face full of surprise. "Leo, aren't you supposed to be at school?" "Dad picked me up," he said, running down to hug me. "Grandma, what are you doing here?" Just as I was about to answer, footsteps sounded on the stairs again. Michael came down and was visibly stunned to see me. "Mom, what are you?" "Your father-in-law brought me here. Said it would be easier to take care of me," I said with a bitter smile. "It seems no one told you." Michael's expression shifted from surprise to anger. "They made a decision behind my back again." He led me and Leo to the sofa and quickly explained why he was back early. He had gone to our old hometown and found the old house. "There really was an iron box under the east wall," he whispered, "but it was empty. Someone had gotten there first." My heart sank. Richard Zhou. Most likely. I found out he visited that village 5 years ago. Michael's eyes glinted with fury. "Mom, you can't stay here any longer. They're clearly holding you captive." "I know, but how do I leave?" Michael thought for a moment. "I'll arrange something for tomorrow. For now, I have to pretend I don't know anything. Or they'll get suspicious." He turned to Leo. "Son, don't tell Mommy or Grandpa that you saw Grandma here, okay?" Leo nodded seriously. "I know, they're the bad guys." His words stunned both Michael and me. A 10-year-old child could see things so clearly. That evening, when Richard and Jessica returned, they were clearly unsettled by Michael's sudden appearance. At dinner, Jessica kept asking why he was back early, and Michael used the excuse that his project had finished ahead of schedule. "Oh, by the way, Mom wasn't feeling well, so I brought her here to stay for a few days," Richard said nonchalantly, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Michael feigned surprise. "Really? That's great." I was worried about Mom living alone. I watched my son act, feeling both proud and pained. He had learned to put on a mask in front of the Joe family. What a sad way to grow up. Back in my room, I heard footsteps lingering outside my door. They were still watching me, even with my son back. Late at night, I got up quietly, and by the moonlight, wrote down the events of the past few days, then hid the note in my undergarments. If Michael could really get me out tomorrow, I would give this to Arthur to keep as evidence. The next morning, Michael announced he was taking Leo to the amusement park. Jessica was about to go with them but was stopped by Richard, who said he had something important to discuss with her. I could see the disappointment in Michael's eyes. He had planned to use this opportunity to get me away. At 10 in the morning, Richard also left, saying he was going to the hospital for a checkup. The villa was left with just me, Jessica, and 2 maids. I was sitting in my room when I heard a knock. "Come in," I said. The door opened, and Jessica stood there, holding a cup of tea. "Mom, have some ginseng tea. It's good for you." Her sudden gentle tone made me wary. "Just leave it there. I'll drink it later." But Jessica came in and placed the tea on the nightstand. "Mom, I know you don't like me, but you have to understand, my dad and I are just trying to do what's best for Michael. Controlling him like a puppet, is that what's best for him?" I couldn't help but retort. Jessica's face changed. "Who's been telling you that? Michael?" I realized I had misspoken and quickly tried to cover. "I have my own eyes. Your family has never treated him like one of your own. That's because he always puts you first." Jessica suddenly grew agitated. "We've been married for so many years, and he still asks for your opinion on everything." "I'm his wife." I looked at her in shock. So this was the jealousy hidden behind her anger. "Jessica, a man's love for his mother doesn't mean he doesn't love his wife," I said softly. "Enough," Jessica interrupted. "Drink the tea and get some rest. My dad has arranged for a lawyer to come tomorrow. You'll need to sign some papers." "What papers?" "Guardianship transfer," she said coldly. "The doctors believe your mental state is not suitable for independent living. As your only son, Michael will have full authority over your care." A chill ran through me. They not only wanted to control my assets, but they also wanted to strip me of my final shred of autonomy. After Jessica left, I poured the tea down the toilet. Who knew what they had put in it? Then I sat on the edge of the bed, planning my next move. If the lawyer really came tomorrow, what should I do? If I refused to sign, would they forcibly use my hand to make a print? At 3 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. I saw Arthur standing at the gate from my window, and my heart leaped. How did he find me here? Jessica went to answer the door. I heard her ask impatiently, "Who are you looking for?" "I'm an old neighbor of Eleanor Miller's. I heard she was here and came to see her," Arthur's voice carried up. "She's not available to see guests," Jessica said, about to close the door. I didn't care anymore. I ran to the top of the stairs and shouted, "Arthur, I'm here." Jessica glared at me furiously. "Mom, go back to your room." Arthur seized the opportunity, pushed past Jessica, and rushed inside. "Eleanor, are you okay?" "Get me out of here," I whispered. "They're trying to hold me captive." Jessica shrieked maids. "Get this crazy old man out of here." 2 maids ran over, but Arthur, though nearly 70, was surprisingly strong. He pushed them aside, grabbed my hand, and started pulling me towards the door. "My things," I struggled to say. "Forget it. Let's just get out of here first," Arthur said, dragging me along. We had just made it into the yard when a black car screeched to a halt in front of the gate. Richard Joe jumped out, his face dark. "And where do we think we're going, Eleanor?" Arthur stood in front of me. "Richard Joe, this is illegal confinement. I can call the police." Richard sneered. "The police? On what grounds?" "Eleanor is my son's mother. She's unwell, so we brought her here to recuperate." "What's the problem?" "Then why did you confiscate her phone? Why are there cameras in her room?" Arthur demanded. Richard's face changed. "How did you know about that?" He turned to me. "It seems your old neighbor is more than he appears." I stood up straight. "Richard, I'm leaving. You have no right to keep me here." "Of course. You're free to leave at any time," he suddenly conceded. "But your things must stay." especially those little trinkets. His eyes darted towards me, and I knew what he meant. If I wanted my freedom, I had to hand over the heirlooms. Fine, I agreed through gritted teeth. Let me go back to my room to get my luggage. Richard smiled, satisfied. Now that's more reasonable. Jessica, accompany her upstairs. Under Jessica's watchful eye, I went back to the room. I took the jade earrings from their hiding place and put them in a jewelry box, but I kept the pendant, hiding it under my tongue. It was the last resort I could think of. Is this it? Jessica looked suspiciously at the earrings. This is what your father wants. I deliberately misled her. They're a set with the pendant from before. Jessica took the jewelry box, still skeptical. I took the chance to grab my small suitcase. Can I go now? Downstairs, I handed the jewelry box to Richard. He eagerly opened it, and his eyes lit up at the sight of the earrings. Indeed, the work of Wang Shusen. You should have been this cooperative from the start. Arthur and I hurried away. It wasn't until we were in a taxi that I dared to spit out the pendant from under my tongue. The jade was covered in saliva, but the lightning streak within it seemed even clearer. Eleanor, are you okay? Arthur asked with concern. I shook my head, then suddenly felt a sharp pain radiate from my liver. My vision went black, and I fainted. When I woke up, I was in a hospital. Arthur and Michael were standing by my bed, their faces grim. Mom, Michael said, seeing me awake, and immediately grabbed my hand. How are you feeling? I'm fine, I said weakly. Where's Leo? He's with Arthur's daughter. He's safe, Michael said, his eyes filled with tears. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't protect you. Silly boy, I'm the one who's caused you trouble. I tried to smile. The Joe family. I've had it out with them. Michael's voice was suddenly firm. I told them if they harass you again, I'm taking Leo and leaving for good. I looked at him in surprise. This was the first time my son had stood up to the Joe family so forcefully. How did Richard react? Arthur asked. Michael gave a bitter smile. He was furious, said if I dared to leave, I'd never see Leo again. But this time, I'm not backing down. I squeezed my son's hand, feeling both proud and worried. Proud that he had finally found himself, but worried because this fight was just beginning, and my time was running out. After the doctor came in for an examination, he privately told Michael that I needed immediate hospitalization. But I knew all the hospital could offer me was painful chemotherapy and cold machines. I had more important things to do. Michael, take me home, I said firmly. Not to the Joes, and not to the retirement community. Take me back to our home. Michael understood what I meant. He remembered our old 500-square-foot apartment. After he got married, he never had the heart to sell it, and had been renting it out. Okay, Mom, we're going home. And so, on the same day I left the Joe family's villa, I returned to the small apartment where Michael and I had lived together over 20 years ago. It was humble, but it was filled with memories and love. And here, I would begin the final, and most important, battle of my life. The old apartment was even smaller than I remembered, but the way the sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains was still so familiar. I sat on the old sofa, feeling as if I had been transported back 20 years, to the days when Michael was still a child, doing his homework at this very coffee table. Mom, you get some rest. I'm going to pick up Leo, Michael said after making my bed. He asked Arthur to look after me, and then left in a hurry. Arthur sat across from me, his brow furrowed. Eleanor, you have to go to the hospital. Liver cancer is serious, but treatment can extend your life. Arthur, I interrupted, my time is short. Instead of wasting it in a hospital, I want to do something meaningful. I took the folded piece of paper from my pocket. This is a record of my time in captivity, including Richard's threats. Please keep it for me, just in case. Arthur took the paper, his eyes red. Don't talk like that. Michael is on your side now. Things will turn around. I gave a bitter smile. The Joe family won't let us go easily, especially now that they only have part of the heirlooms. Those earrings are very valuable. According to Richard, they're the work of a late Qing jade master, priceless, I sighed. But the pendant is the most important piece. It's not only more valuable, it also... I hesitated, then decided to tell Arthur. There's a secret inside the pendant. My husband's diary mentioned that his great-grandfather hid an important document, miniaturized, inside the jade. Richard probably knows this, which is why he's so obsessed. Arthur's eyes widened. A document? What kind of document? I don't know. The diary only says it concerns the family's honor and disgrace. I shook my head. To get the document out, the pendant has to be destroyed. I could never bring myself to do it. As we were talking, the doorbell rang. Arthur went to answer it, and was surprised to find Leo standing there alone. "Grandma!" Leo ran in and threw himself into my arms. Dad told me to come first. He had to run an errand. I held my grandson, and suddenly something felt wrong. "Leo, how did you get here? Who brought you?" "Mommy's driver," Leo answered innocently. "But Daddy doesn't know." Arthur and I exchanged a look. We were both alarmed. Why would Jessica take the initiative to send Leo here? It was completely out of character. "Leo, what else did Mommy say?" I asked softly. "She told me to see where Grandma lives and tell her when I get back." Leo suddenly lowered his voice. "But I'm not going to tell her. I know Mommy and Grandpa are mean to Grandma." My heart clenched. Jessica was using her own child to spy on us. "Leo, good boy," I said, stroking his hair. "Listen to Grandma. When you get back, if Mommy asks, just say you can't remember the address, okay?" Leo nodded, then looked around curiously. "Grandma, is this where Dad lived when he was little?" "It's so small." "Yes, it's small, but it was warm," I said with a smile. "Come, Grandma will show you pictures of your dad when he was a boy." I took out my treasured photo album and flipped through it with Leo. The Michael in the photos had been a serious child, from his young pioneer portrait to his college entrance photo, always smiling so brightly. "Daddy was so skinny when he was little," Leo commented. "Yes, we were poor back then. Your dad couldn't even afford the bus fare to school. He walked 40 minutes every day," I said, pointing at a photo. "But he was very determined. He always got the best grades." Leo's eyes lit up. "I want to get the best grades, too." Looking at my grandson's innocent face, I suddenly decided to tell him something important. "Leo, Grandma has something to tell you. Do you know what a family heirloom is?" Leo shook his head. "An heirloom isn't just something valuable. It's a family's skill and spirit." I took out the jade pendant and showed him the lightning streak. "This is our Miller family heirloom. One day, it will be passed down to you. But more important than this is to remember the Miller family values: honesty, hard work, and filial piety." Leo nodded, half understanding, his small hand gently touching the pendant. "It's so beautiful. Grandma hopes that when you grow up, no matter how wealthy you become, you will never forget these qualities," I said, holding back tears. "Can you promise, Grandma?" "I promise," Leo said solemnly, then suddenly asked, "Grandma, are you going to die?" The question pierced my heart like a knife. A child's intuition is always so sharp. "Everyone dies one day, Leo," I said softly. "But what's important is what you do and what you leave behind when you're alive." Leo suddenly threw himself into my arms and started to cry. "I don't want Grandma to die." I held him, tears streaming silently down my face. At that moment, how I wished I could live a few more years, to watch Leo grow into a man. The sound of a key turning in the lock interrupted our tender moment. Michael was back, his face unusually grim. "Mom, I just came from the lawyer's office," he said, glancing at Leo, and hesitated. "Leo, why don't you go play in the other room for a bit?" Arthur gently led the child away. Michael sat down, his voice low. "Richard Joe has filed a petition with the court to have you declared legally incompetent, with me and Jessica as your guardians." A chill ran down my spine. "On what grounds?" "He found 2 doctors to issue certificates, stating that your mental state is unstable due to the liver cancer and that you require guardianship." Michael clenched his fists. "What's worse, he's claiming that the junk you collect is a safety hazard and needs to be appraised and stored by a professional, meaning him." "That's just blatant robbery," Arthur said angrily. "Is there a court date?" I asked, forcing myself to remain calm. "Next Wednesday." Michael looked at me with anguish. "Mom, I won't let them get away with this. I've already contacted a lawyer friend. He's going to help us fight. I took my son's hand. Michael, I'm not afraid of going to court. I've lived for over 70 years, and I've never bowed my head to anyone. Michael's tears finally fell. Mom, I've let you down so much over the years. Don't say that. I patted his hand. The most important thing now is to prepare for the hearing. Richard is rich and powerful. We have to be fully prepared. Arthur suddenly spoke up. Eleanor, didn't you have a recording of Richard threatening you? Jessica's people took it. I shook my head. But I remember what was said. I can write it down. It's not enough. We need physical evidence, Arthur mused. Wait, the security cameras in the Joe's villa. If we can get the surveillance footage. Michael's eyes lit up. I can try. I helped them install that system. I know the password. It's too dangerous, I objected. If you get caught. Mom, this is something I have to do, Michael said firmly. I've been a coward for too long. Now it's my turn to protect you. Looking at his determined eyes, I felt both proud and worried. Proud that my son had finally found his courage, but worried that he might lose everything because of it, his career, his family, even custody of Leo. That night, Michael insisted on staying with me, sending Leo back with Arthur. Before bed, I took out the jade pendant and examined it under the light. The lightning streak seemed to glow, as if telling me something. Michael, come look, I called my son over. Your father's diary says there's an important document hidden in here. Michael took the pendant in surprise. Inside? How? I'm not sure. The diary says your great-grandfather used a special technique to seal a miniaturized document inside the jade, I said, pointing to the lightning streak. It might have something to do with this. Michael held it up to the light, observing it closely. Mom, this streak doesn't look natural. It's too regular. It looks like some kind of symbol. Can you get it out? I don't know. It would probably require professional tools, Michael hesitated. Mom, if we take it out, it will damage the pendant. Do it, I made up my mind. If the document inside can help us fight the Joe family, it's worth it. Michael nodded and carefully put the pendant away. I'll find a jade expert tomorrow to ask about it. Late at night, I lay in bed, the pain in my liver becoming increasingly unbearable. I bit down on my lip, trying not to make a sound and wake my son sleeping in the next room. Moonlight filtered through a crack in the curtains, drawing a silver line on the wall. I remembered the night my husband died. The moonlight was just like this. Michael was only 6 then, clinging to my leg, asking where his daddy had gone. I told him his daddy had become a star in the sky and would always be watching over us. More than 30 years had passed. That little boy had grown into a man, and I was nearing the end of my life. But this time, I wouldn't leave suddenly like my husband had. I would arrange everything to protect my child and my grandchild. The next morning, Michael left early, saying he was going to find a jade expert and prepare the legal materials. Arthur brought Leo to see me, along with some hot porridge and side dishes. Grandma, I'll feed you, Leo volunteered, picking up the spoon. I smiled and let him feed me, spoonful by spoonful. The child's hand was still unsteady, and some of the porridge spilled onto the blanket, but he was so serious, so focused, that it warmed my heart. Leo's such a good boy, Arthur praised from the side. Much better than his dad was at his age. Leo puffed out his chest proudly. When I grow up, I'm going to be a doctor and cure Grandma's sickness. His words made my nose sting. How I wished I could live to see that day. In the afternoon, Michael returned, his face flushed with excitement. Mom, I found it. Found what? I struggled to sit up. Michael carefully took a small paper packet from his bag. He opened it to reveal a piece of paper as thin as a cicada's wing, covered in tiny, dense script. This is the document from the pendant? How did you get it out? I asked in amazement. I found a friend who's a jade carver. He used a laser to cut a tiny opening along the lightning streak and took this out, Michael said excitedly. And you'll never guess what it is. Arthur and I leaned in to look, but the words were too small to read. It's a secret letter from the year 1900, Michael whispered. My great-grandfather was serving in the Foreign Office at the time, and he recorded a secret deal between a certain prince and a foreign power, and this prince was Richard Joe's great-grandfather. I gasped. Now everything made sense. Why Richard was so obsessed with the Miller family heirlooms he was trying to cover up his family's scandal. If this document were made public, it would be a huge blow to the Joe family, Arthur analyzed. Especially since Richard has always portrayed himself as a patriotic businessman and often talks about his family's glorious history in the media. Michael nodded. I've already had a friend make high-resolution scans and enlargements. This document will be our trump card in court. Looking at my son's shining eyes, I suddenly felt a pang of heartache. He was about to face his own wife and father-in-law in court. That would be a painful choice for anyone. Michael, are you sure about this? I asked softly. This could destroy your marriage. Michael's expression became resolute. Mom, that marriage was already dead. Jessica and her father only ever saw me as a puppet and a tool. Right now, I just want to be a son you can be proud of. I took his hand, my vision blurring with tears. In that moment, I saw again the little boy who had sworn at his father's funeral to protect his mother. And there's more good news, Michael continued. I got the surveillance footage from the Joe's villa. All of your conversations during your stay were recorded, including Richard threatening you. How did you get it? Arthur asked in surprise. Michael smiled. I am, after all, the son-in-law of that family, and I was the one who helped them upgrade their security system. Just as we were talking, the doorbell rang. Michael went to answer it, and I heard a familiar female voice. Michael, where did you take my son? It was Jessica. She had found us. Jessica stormed in, her high heels clicking, her perfect makeup unable to hide the fury in her eyes. She was visibly stunned to see Arthur and me there. Mom, Arthur, she managed a greeting, then immediately turned to Michael. Where is Leo? I called the school. They said he wasn't there today. I took a day off for him to see his grandmother, Michael said calmly. Is there a problem? A flicker of panic crossed Jessica's eyes. You know my dad is applying for guardianship, right? The judge won't like you taking the child out of his normal environment. Normal environment? Michael sneered. You mean the house full of surveillance cameras that doesn't even spare an old woman? Jessica's face changed. What are you talking about? Stop pretending, Jessica. Michael's voice was suddenly weary. I've seen the surveillance footage. I know exactly how you and your dad treated my mother. Jessica's lips trembled. Michael, let me explain. Explain what? Explain why you put a 72-year-old woman under house arrest? Explain why you tried to steal the Miller family heirlooms? Michael's voice grew more agitated. Or explain how your great-grandfather betrayed his country? The last sentence exploded in the room like a bomb. Jessica's face went deathly pale. How did you know? So it's true. Michael laughed bitterly. You knew all along, didn't you? Your family approached me just to cover up this scandal. Jessica suddenly screamed hysterically. It wasn't like that. Not at first. I just liked you. Her voice dropped. Later, Dad found out about your family's heirloom secret, and then, the admission was like a dagger to Michael's heart. I saw my son's body sway, as if struck by an invisible blow. 10 years, Michael's voice was hoarse. 10 years of marriage was all a lie. Jessica started to cry. No, I do love you. It's just my dad, Enough, Michael cut her off. I'll see you in court on Wednesday. Now please leave. Jessica stood frozen, tears streaking her perfect makeup. Leo, can I see Leo? Not today, Michael said firmly. He needs to be with his grandmother. Jessica looked at me, her eyes suddenly filled with hatred. It's all your fault. If it weren't for you... Arthur immediately stepped in front of me. Jessica, watch your words. Jessica took a deep breath and turned towards the door. Before leaving, she gave Michael one last look. You'll regret this. After the door closed, the room was silent. Michael collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands, his shoulders trembling slightly. I struggled to my feet and went to him, gently stroking his hair. Michael. Mom, I'm fine, he said, looking up, forcing a smile. It's just 10 years. To think I was living in a lie, I didn't know how to comfort him. Any words would feel hollow in the face of such pain. Arthur broke the silence. What now? The Zhou family won't give up easily. Michael forced himself to pull together. We stick to the plan. On Wednesday, in court, we exposed them with the document and the surveillance footage. But the guardianship case, I said, worried. If they win, I'll lose all my autonomy. They won't, Mom, Michael said, taking my hand. I've already filed a countersuit to have Jessica's joint custody of Leo revoked. Also, my lawyer friend found a precedent. A child's parents cannot simultaneously serve as guardians for that child's grandparent. It's a conflict of interest. I nodded, but I was still uneasy. Richard was wealthy and influential. He could afford the best lawyers. All we had was the truth and justice, and in this world, sometimes those things feel so powerless. That evening, Michael went to Arthur's to pick up Leo. The child seemed to sense the tension between his parents and was unusually quiet and well-behaved. Before bed, he took my hand and said, "Grandma, Dad said we're going to move out. Is that true?" I looked at Michael, who nodded gently. "Yes, sweetie." I stroked Leo's face. "You and Dad will have a new home. Will Grandma come with us?" The question pierced my heart. Would I live to see that day? "Grandma will always be watching over you," I said evasively, fighting back tears. Leo seemed satisfied with the answer and soon fell asleep. Michael and I sat in the small living room, planning our next moves. "I've sent scans of the document to several media outlets," Michael said in a low voice. "As soon as Richard's scandal is exposed in court, they'll publish the story immediately." "Isn't that too harsh?" I hesitated. "After all, this involves Jessica and Leo." "Mom, have they ever shown us any mercy?" Michael retorted. "Think about what they did when you were so sick." I was speechless. He was right. Richard had even threatened me, implying I could die from an accident. "There's one more thing," Michael hesitated. "I contacted a friend at the museum. They're very interested in our family heirlooms, especially the jade set. If you agree, they're willing to acquire them for a high price and display them in the museum, with a plaque crediting the donation to the Miller family." I thought for a moment. The pendant and earrings, yes, but I hope to leave one piece for Leo. It is, after all, the Miller family legacy. "Of course," Michael nodded. "I'll have the best jade craftsman restore the pendant, although the lightning streak will leave a mark." "That's fine," I said with a smile. "Let that mark remind Leo that some truths, even if hidden for 100 years, will eventually see the light of day." The next day, Michael was busy preparing materials with the lawyer, while Arthur helped me sort through all the savings and property documents I had accumulated over the years. It wasn't much, but I wanted to have everything in order before I left. "Eleanor, you need to write a will," Arthur advised. "Specify how the heirlooms and property should be distributed." I nodded. "I want to leave most of it to Leo, but set up a trust fund managed by Michael, which Leo can only access when he's an adult." "What about the jade pendant?" "It goes directly to Leo, but with the condition that he must be 18 to wear it," I mused. "I don't want Jessica or Richard to get it through him." Arthur helped me contact a lawyer friend who came to the apartment that afternoon to help me draft the will. As I signed it, my hand was shaking so badly that I had to stop and take several deep breaths. "Ma'am, do you need to go to the hospital?" the lawyer asked with concern. I shook my head. "No, I'm fine. Let's continue." After signing, I felt as if a great weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Whatever the outcome of Wednesday's hearing, at least my final affairs were in order. That evening, Michael brought back some good news. He had found a new job at a startup. "The salary isn't as high as at the Zhou Group, but there's equity," he said excitedly. "The CEO is a college friend of mine, very reliable." I was happy for him, but also worried. "Will the Zhou family?" "They don't have that much influence," Michael said confidently. "Besides, once the document is made public, Richard will have his own problems to deal with. He won't have the energy to come after me." Seeing my son regain his confidence filled me with relief. He had finally escaped the shadow of the Zhou family and found himself again. Before bed, I took out the jade pendant. It had been restored. The lightning streak had become a thin gold line where the craftsman had cleverly filled the incision. I held the pendant up to the light, imagining how, 100 years ago, Michael's great-grandfather had hidden that important document inside, and how he had instructed his descendants to guard the secret. And now, That secret was about to be revealed. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing, but to protect my child and my grandchild, I had no other choice. On Wednesday morning, I forced my ailing body to get dressed in my most presentable navy blue suit. Michael had a doctor friend come to the apartment to give me a painkiller shot so I could last through the hearing. "Mom, if it gets too bad, we can ask for a postponement," Michael said worriedly. "No, it has to end today," I said firmly. At the courthouse entrance, we ran into Richard and Jessica. Richard was in a sharp suit, looking confident of victory. Jessica was pale, her eyes red and swollen. She clearly hadn't slept in days. Well, you're not looking so good," Richard said with false concern. "Why go through all this trouble? Just sign the guardianship papers, and we'll guarantee you get the best treatment." I looked him straight in the eye. "Richard, God is watching." His expression stiffened for a moment, then he sneered. "We'll see you in court." The courtroom was solemn and imposing, and I couldn't help but feel nervous. Michael squeezed my hand, giving me an encouraging look. The judge was a woman in her 50s with a stern face. She reviewed the documents submitted by both sides and then declared the session open. Richard's lawyer spoke first, claiming that due to late-stage liver cancer, my mental state was unstable, and I needed a guardian to manage my life and assets. He even produced 2 doctor's certificates attesting to my impaired judgment. When it was our lawyer's turn to rebut, he first played the surveillance footage from the Zhou family's villa. The video clearly showed me being confined to my room, and Richard threatening me to hand over the heirlooms. A murmur went through the courtroom. The judge frowned at Richard. "Mr. Zhou, do you have an explanation for this?" Richard, unfazed, replied, "Those were just necessary measures to ensure an elderly person's safety. Her condition is serious, and we were worried something might happen if she lived alone." Our lawyer then presented the document extracted from the jade pendant, along with an expert report from a historian authenticating it as a genuine secret correspondence from the Guangxu era, detailing the treasonous acts of Richard Zhou's great-grandfather, Mr. Zhou has long been trying to acquire the Miller family heirlooms precisely to destroy this evidence of his family's scandal, our lawyer stated emphatically. This so-called guardianship application is nothing more than a guise to control Miss Miller and her assets. The courtroom was in an uproar again. The reporters in the press gallery were scribbling furiously. Some were already sending out reports on their phones. Richard's face turned livid. "This is slander. That document is a forgery." "We have authentication reports from 3 leading historians," our lawyer responded calmly. "If Mr. Zhou disputes this, he can apply for a re-evaluation." The judge examined the evidence from both sides and then announced a 30-minute recess. I slumped back in my chair, the pain in my liver becoming unbearable. "Mom, can you hold on?" Michael asked with concern. I nodded, wiping the cold sweat from my forehead. "I'm fine. I can make it." After the recess, the judge delivered her verdict. She dismissed Richard Zhou's guardianship application, severely criticizing his actions as a grave violation of public morals. At the same time, she approved Michael's countersuit, temporarily suspending Jessica's joint custody of Leo pending further hearing in family court. Richard erupted in anger and was escorted out by the bailiffs. Jessica collapsed onto her chair, sobbing. As we left the courthouse, the sunlight was blindingly bright. Reporters swarmed around us, but Michael gave a few brief responses and then quickly guided me away. Back in the car, I finally couldn't hold on any longer and slumped in my seat. Pain washed over me in waves, and my vision blackened. "Mom!" "Hold on, we're going to the hospital right now." Michael's voice seemed to come from far away. I struggled to stay conscious. "Michael. Mom. Might not make it." "Don't say that. You'll be fine." Michael's voice was choked with sobs as the car sped towards the hospital. On the edge of consciousness, I vaguely saw my husband's youthful, smiling face. He was waving to me, just like he did on our first date over 30 years ago, shy and gentle. "Daniel, just wait a little longer," I said in my heart. "Let me see our grandson one more time." And then, darkness consumed everything. Blinding white light, the smell of disinfectant, the rhythmic beeping of a machine. I slowly opened my eyes and found myself in a hospital bed, hooked up to various tubes. "Mom, you're awake." Michael's face came into view. He was unshaven, his eyes bloodshot. He clearly hadn't slept in a long time. "Leo, I managed to get out. He's fine. He's with Arthur's daughter," Michael said, taking my hand. "Mom, you were in a coma for 3 days. The doctor said," he said, his voice choked, unable to continue. I understood. My time had come. "Michael, bring Leo." Each word took all my strength. Michael nodded and rushed out of the room. A few moments later, he returned with Leo, with Arthur following behind. Leo's eyes were red, clearly from crying. He tiptoed to my bedside. "Grandma." I tried to lift my hand to stroke his small face. His hand gripped my fingers tightly. It was so warm, so real. "Leo, Grandma's gift to you?" I said, looking at Michael. Michael understood. He took the jade pendant from his pocket and gently placed it around Leo's neck. "This is the Miller family heirloom," I said in broken phrases. "Take care of it. Grow up to be a good person." Leo's tears fell onto the back of my hand, scalding hot. "Grandma, I don't want a gift. I want you to be okay." How I wanted to promise him that. How I wanted to watch this little angel grow up, get married, and have children of his own. But life is full of regrets. "Michael," I turned to my son, "take care of yourself. And Leo." Michael knelt by the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mom, I will, I swear." Arthur stood by, weeping silently. This always cheerful old man looked 10 years older at this moment. The door to the room suddenly opened, and an unexpected figure walked in. Jessica. She looked haggard, her eyes red and swollen, and she was holding a bouquet of white carnations. "Mom," she said softly, standing at the foot of the bed, not daring to come closer. Michael stood up defensively. "What are you doing here?" I came to apologize." Jessica's tears started to fall. "Dad, Richard has been suspended by the board of directors. After the document was exposed, the media went into a frenzy. The company's stock has plummeted. So you're here to beg for mercy," Michael sneered. "No," Jessica said emotionally. "I'm here to sincerely apologize. Mom," she looked at me. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I looked at her, this daughter-in-law who had once broken my heart. At this moment, she was no longer the arrogant, wealthy socialite, but just a repentant, ordinary woman. I weakly lifted my hand, beckoning her closer. Jessica hesitated, then came to the bedside. "Jessica, take care of them," I said with great difficulty. Jessica broke down completely. "Mom, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong." I nodded, forgiving her. Holding on to resentment is too tiring, and I didn't want to leave with it. After the doctor came in for a check, he hinted to the family that it was time to prepare for the end. Michael rushed out in a state of collapse to find the attending physician. Arthur took Leo to get something to eat, leaving just Jessica and me in the room. "Mom," Jessica suddenly lowered her voice. "I know you don't trust me, but I want to make amends." "The will." Michael told me about it. "I will respect your wishes. I will never touch that property." I looked at her in surprise. The change was so sudden. I watched the surveillance footage. All of it. Jessica's tears wouldn't stop. "I saw how my dad threatened you, and I saw how you treated Leo." She choked up. Only then did I understand what real love is. I squeezed her hand in understanding. Sometimes people need to go through a storm to see what's truly important. After Michael returned, I asked Jessica to leave. I needed to speak with my son alone. "Michael, after Mom is gone, don't be too sad." I struggled to form the words. "You still have Leo. You have to be strong." Michael held my hand, his tears soaking the bedsheet. "Mom, don't say that. You'll get better." I shook my head. I knew I couldn't hold on for much longer. The funeral. Keep it simple. My ashes, with your father. Michael nodded, unable to speak. Night fell. The room was quiet, with only Michael keeping vigil. The pain had subsided, replaced by a strange sense of peace. I knew this was life's final gift. "Michael," I whispered. "Mom, I'm here." Michael immediately leaned in. "Sing. Sing that song. From when you were little, the one I used to sing to put you to sleep." Michael paused for a moment, then began to sing softly. The moon sails through the white lotus-like clouds. It was the lullaby I used to sing to him. Mommy tells me the story of the past. Now, it was his turn to sing it for me. In my son's gentle song, I slowly closed my eyes. Scenes from the past flashed through my mind like a movie. My husband holding my hand for the first time, Michael's first cry at birth, the warmth of Leo snuggled in my arms, listening to a story. The singing grew distant, and a gentle darkness enveloped me. My last thought was, my children will be all right. And then, everything was calm. My funeral was held on a bright, sunny morning. Michael had insisted on keeping it simple, but many people came: old neighbors, former colleagues, even some reporters. They all wanted to see the old woman who had bravely fought against the powerful in the final moments of her life. Michael stood before the memorial, looking at his mother's peaceful face. Eleanor was dressed in her favorite deep blue dress, her silver hair neatly coiffed, a faint smile on her lips, as if she were just sleeping. Leo stood by his father's side, his small hand clutching the jade pendant around his neck. It was the last gift his grandmother had given him, and he would cherish it forever. Jessica came too, standing at the back of the crowd. Since the sensational lawsuit, her relationship with Michael had become delicate, not divorced, but not reconciled either, a co-parenting relationship based on their love for Leo. Richard Joe's reputation was in ruins due to the company scandal and the attempted guardianship manipulation. He had gone abroad to recuperate. Arthur, as a lifelong friend, delivered the eulogy. He spoke of Eleanor's ordinary yet resilient life, widowed young, raising her son alone to be successful, and in her old age, fighting to protect her family's legacy. Eleanor is gone, but she has left behind the most precious inheritance, a character of integrity and selfless love. Arthur's voice choked. Her story tells us that no matter how powerless a person may seem, they have the right to say no in the face of injustice. Michael listened, tears streaming silently down his face. His mother's life had no earth-shattering achievements, but through her quiet resilience, she had taught him what dignity and love meant. After the funeral, Michael took Leo back to their new rented apartment. It wasn't large, but it was full of sunlight, and Eleanor's favorite landscape painting hung on the wall. "Dad, has Grandma really become a star?" Leo asked, looking up. Michael knelt down to be at eye level with his son. "Yes, she will always be in the sky, watching over us." "Will she see me get into college, get married, and have kids?" "Of course," Michael said, holding back his tears. "Grandma will be so proud of you." Leo nodded seriously, his small hand touching the jade pendant again. "I'll take good care of the family heirloom and pass it down to my children one day." Michael hugged his son tightly. His mother's passing had broken his heart, but it had also made him understand his responsibility as a father. He swore to pass on the values his mother had taught him: honesty, diligence, and respect to Leo. That evening, Michael sorted through his mother's belongings. Besides the jade pendant for Leo, his mother had specified the distribution of a few other items. Her husband's diaries and family photos were for Michael to keep, some old stamps and coins were to be donated to a museum, and her remaining savings were to establish an education fund for Leo's college. What surprised Michael the most was a special note in the will. If Jessica truly repented, his mother hoped Michael would give her another chance. "Mom, you were always so kind," Michael whispered, tears welling up again. Meanwhile, in his apartment at the retirement community, Arthur was talking to a photo of Eleanor. "Eleanor, you left too soon." He poured 2 glasses of wine, placing one in front of the photo. "But don't you worry. I'll keep an eye on Michael and Leo." He took a sip of wine and suddenly smiled. "By the way, Jessica came to see me today. She wants to fund a scholarship in your name, the Eleanor Miller Traditional Medicine Scholarship, to help poor students studying Chinese medicine. Would you call that a prodigal daughter returning?" The Eleanor in the photo smiled, as if in approval. Arthur had a few more glasses, and in his drunken haze, he seemed to see his old friend sitting across from him, in the same deep blue dress, with the same silver hair and warm smile. "Eleanor, in the next life, let's meet sooner," Arthur mumbled, then fell asleep at the table. Moonlight shone through the window, illuminating Eleanor's photograph and Arthur's white hair. It was quiet and peaceful, just like the old woman who had passed, but would forever live on in the hearts of those who loved her. A life ends, but love and legacy are eternal. Eleanor Miller had proved this in her final days. And her story, through Michael, Leo, and that time-worn jade pendant, would continue on.